Well, let's start with the configuration scenario. Let's build this in parts. We will start in this class by just creating the VPCs. Then, we will create the subnets within each of these VPCs, and then we will create the internet gateways and attach them to the VPCs. In the following classes, we will continue with the other elements. That said, let's get started. Okay, from the VPC panel, we will create the first VPC, and it will be called Application VPC. The IP address range is 10.0.0.0/16, and I will create the VPC. I will repeat this same step again to create the security VPC. It will be called Security VPC. The IP address range will be 192.168.0.0/16, and I will create the VPC. Now, let's create the subnets for each VPC. I go to Subnets, create subnet, choose the application VPC, and the first subnet will be called Application Server Subnet. For the availability zone, I will select US East 2A. For simplicity, I will work with a single availability zone. For production scenarios, I recommend distributing your resources across multiple availability zones. Next, I need to provide a range of IP addresses. I will use the IP address range 10.0.1.0/24. Remember that the IP address range of the subnet must belong to the VPC range. From here, I will create the other subnet, and it will be called Endpoint Subnet. Same availability zone, and the IP address range will be 10.0.2.0/24. And finally, the last subnet of this VPC will be called Application Bastion Subnet. Same AZ. And we are going to use the IP address range 10.0.3.0/24. Once all this is done, we create the subnets. And we have the subnets of the application VPC. Now, I will do the same with the security VPC. And the first subnet will be called GWLB subnet, since it will be the subnet for the gateway load balancer. I will use the same availability zone. The IP address range will be 192.168.1.0/24. From here, I will create the other subnet, and it will be called Inspection Subnet. Same availability zone, and the IP address range will be 192.168.2.0/24. And the last subnet I will create is for the Security Bastion host. So, we'll call this one Security Bastion Subnet. In the same availability zone, and the IP address range will be 192.168.3.0/24. Once everything is configured, I will create the subnets. And it is done. Now, subnets by themselves are neither public nor private. It depends on whether we give them access to the internet. Both VPCs need internet access because we are going to create a Bastion host in each VPC that we are going to connect to from the internet. Then, we need to create the internet gateways and attach them to the two VPCs we just created. So, we go to Internet Gateway. Create. We'll call this one Application IGW. Create. Attach it to Application VPC. And we're done. I will repeat the same steps, and this one will be called Security IGW. Create. Attach to Security VPC. And that's it. So, with that, We have the first part of our scenario set up. Now, let's create the EC2 instances, the target group, and the gateway load balancer.